Alright, here's a electronic chart in ForeFlight that I use to map out my rough course for my cross-country flight, and then I did some briefing and looking on Google Earth to identify checkpoints and make sure that I thought I could identify them from the air, and the video is self-explanatory, so it will just walk you through it. And this is just a quick video as I did it, no editing, no going back and changing things. So if you're a experienced aviator, of course I make some missteps in my verbiage while doing the Google Earth video, but like I said, it's just a rough go through to see if my plan makes sense, and it's so much easier to do it when you haven't flown these routes, to see it visually, to get an idea what you're looking at, to see if you're comfortable with it. So again, no editing, it's just a rough recording, and it is what it is. Thanks.
Alright, this is a tour of the cross country that I will be doing next Monday. I've got it all out on the chart, and then since I've never flown in this area, I decided to put it into Google Earth with a view at 2,500 feet MSL to see what it would look like. And it was really interesting because I was able to pick out some landmarks that I didn't think about and then find them on my chart, and so I know they should be identifiable from the air. And then I was also able to actually get an idea of what some of my actual timed checkpoints are going to look like from the air, because on a nautical or an aeronautical chart, sometimes you pick out things you think, oh, I'll be able to see that from 3,000 feet, and then when it comes right down to it, you can't find it, or it just doesn't look like what you thought it would look like from the air. So doing it in this is pretty interesting. You can change the speed, which I'm doing, and we just took off from Westminster, Carroll County Regional, and flying over the Hampstead area on the way to the first checkpoint. So even though that's not one of my time checkpoints, I know I can probably use that just to make sure I'm staying on course and to confirm my wind correction and magnetic course is what I want it to be. So I'll speed it up here so this doesn't take forever. And we are past Hampstead on our way to Pretty Boy Reservoir. So this gives me an idea on the upper left what I should be seeing as I come up on it, and kind of how the reservoir is situated. And then right there you can see is my dam, and that's checkpoint number 1, so I'll actually record that on my flight log. And if I'm a little bit left or a little bit right of the dam itself, as I see it coming, I can correct my course so that I overfly the dam and get myself back on track. That way, if I let the wind blow me a mile to the left or a mile to the right, I don't carry that all the way down the 70 nautical miles or so that this trip is each way, and then end up running into restricted airspace later in the trip, which is really what this trip is all about, as far as planning around 3 highly restricted zones and then the Class B airspace surrounding BWI Airport. We actually have to fly underneath a couple rings of Class B airspace, so our altitude is real important in order to avoid having somebody meet us at our location and interview us as to why we are busting airspace. So we've now we should be on our way to checkpoint number 2, which will be Loch Raven, the second dam, the lower dam at Loch Raven. And I did identify the golf courses. I'll back this up, and I did not see this on the chart originally, but it will help me to make sure that I'm on course for my second checkpoint right there. I should be able to see these golf courses very easily, so I should be able to line myself up and start making a correction so that I overfly the dam at the location that I want to. It gives me the layout of what the reservoir should look like. And right there is checkpoint number 2. Now this is going to be critical because at this point I need to identify that golf course and Loch Raven reservoir very carefully and make sure that I am erring to the left of the dam. If I'm anywhere lined up and flying a course that is to the right of the dam, which would be southwest of the dam, then I've got to understand that right adjacent to that, the Class B airspace for BWI goes from 2,500 MSL to 10,000 MSL. So when I overfly this dam, I have to make sure that I am at 2,300 MSL. I only have a small amount of room for air. 200 feet above, I bust Class B airspace, and 1,700 feet is the absolute bottom of the tallest obstacle in this grid, which may be well off my course, but that's called like a safe altitude. So in theory I want to be 500 above that, which is 2,200, and then 300 above that is Class B airspace. So I have to really hit my altitude and hold it starting at the reservoir all the way until I get out of the Class B airspace, which really isn't almost to my destination, but it does go up. Once I get up over the water, it does go to 3,500 MSL all the way up to 10,000 MSL. So it's just critical that I hit 2,300 feet and maintain it from here on out. So that's a major checkpoint. Next, we will also not only will we be making sure we're maintaining 2,300 MSL, we'll make sure by now we have the tower on our radio for Martin State Airport, and that we're communicating with the Class D airspace towered by Martin State Airport, because we have to establish communications before we hit that airspace, and to let them know that we are overflying their field so that they can give us vectors or air traffic control guidance if the need be, especially since we're overflying it not that much above pattern altitude. We'll be 1,000 feet or so above pattern altitude, so we're really going to have to be careful with traffic in this area. This is another checkpoint that I never even thought by looking at the map that it would be so easy to pick out, but the way it's bracketed on all sides, that White Marsh Mall should be, if I'm on course, should be dead on, and I know that I should be overflying it just to the right right through the parking lot between the building and this area right here. So I should be coming right through there, and that'll help me to give me another little course correction so that I can overfly Martin State right down the middle of at a 9° to the runways. So on we go, and just after the mall, that also gives me an idea of where to look for the airport. You'd be surprised how hard an airport is to pick out from the air when you're moving at 110 to 120 knots, only 2,300 feet off the ground. It can be hard to either misidentify or not be able to identify the airport field. So by finding that mall, getting on course if I'm a little off, I'll know that the field is dead ahead. So we're overflying Martin State Airport, and right near Martin State Airport, here is where the Class B airspace drops to 2,500. So I have to make sure that I'm at that 2,300 in order to stay out of the airspace. I'll be looking for Hart Miller Island and the marinas before that, and I should overfly the island on the northern tip. So again, because I'm changing heading at slightly at Martin State, the wind will be a little bit different than my last leg of the trip, so I want to make sure that I'm correcting for wind and that my calculations are right, and knowing where I want to fly over the island will help me do that. Coming up Rock Hall, I should be able to see the city of Rock Hall, and I want to be able to identify the city so that I make sure I get the right point. Sometimes you see big projections of land, like a Little Neck Island. You'd think they'd be easy to pick out from the air, but especially at this low altitude, sometimes not so easy. By being able to see a city, and even one that's marked on the aeronautical chart as a checkpoint that you can report to towers, you can say Rock Hall, and they should know where you're at. Allows you to pick out the city and then bring your gaze back towards you and make sure you're identifying the right piece of land, because that's one of our time checkpoints, so that we turn course to head to our next checkpoint. So it's really important that you identify the checkpoint in time to be able to look at your timer, record the time, and determine what your next heading is going to be, so that as soon as you hit that checkpoint, you're able to turn course. 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds makes a huge difference when you're trying to stay on course. Moving along, speed it up a bit. There we go, we turn course. Now we're looking for Kent Narrows Bridge and the wildlife, Eastern Neck National Wildlife Refuge. And we want to be just, of course, we want to fly just to the right of the refuge island and right over the Kent Narrows Bridge, which is another checkpoint that's identified by a little, it looks like a golf tee flag on the aeronautical chart, so you can report that to air traffic control. And there's the Kent Narrows Bridge, and you should be able to identify the marinas and the city here, Wells Cove, so that we can overfly the bridge where we want to, because here we're making sure we have the frequencies in our radios, that we're listening to the weather for Easton Airport, and communicating with the towers prior to entering the Class D airspace surrounding Easton. Right there we turn course and head on into Easton. And we're hitting land and then our water again. We can see that on the map, and then just when we get back into land, there's Easton Airport. So again, it can be difficult, surprisingly, to identify the airport and the field. So you really want to make sure that you have a good checkpoint identified.